All right. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this Advance in Conversation. We are with the wonderful Keaton Sunchild from Western Native Voice. We are going to be talking today about sustaining Native leadership in Montana and what the future looks like with Western Native Voice and building out Native power. So I'm going to do a little bit of a background about myself, a little bit of an intro, talk a little bit about Advance, and then we're going to get into some questions for Keaton. Um, but first off, thank you, Keaton, for being here. So excited to pick your brain and learn more about some of the amazing work that you're doing. And then we have a special surprise at the end, which Keaton's been kind of prepped about, but doesn't know a ton on. So excited for that. So stay tuned for the end of this. Uh, yeah, so my name is Mica Standing Soldier. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Oglala Lakota from South Dakota, currently living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I serve as Advance's National Program Manager of Strategic Recruitment and Partnerships. So I have the wonderful honor of getting to meet lots of wonderful Native folks for a lot of our different programming and build out a lot of our partnerships with different organizations, one of which is Western Native Voice. So a little bit of a background about Advance before I properly introduce our guest. Advanced Native Political Leadership, or ADVANCE as we like to call it on the inside team, so now you know the inside language, is the first and only national Native-led organization dedicated to building political power in Native communities. So we take a holistic approach to create an ecosystem that focuses on leadership recruitment and support, civic engagement, data and research, and national coordination. We believe that when Native peoples and communities have access to national networks, innovative tools for organizing, strong voter engagement strategies, and pathways to leadership, we actually strengthen the health and well-being of all of our communities. Native political engagement has been deeply limited by historical, legal, and modern barriers, and this is especially true for Native women. And because of these barriers, Native peoples remain drastically underrepresented in government at every level. So, a cornerstone of this effort to increase representation is the Native Leadership Institute, which is Advance's training program designed by and for Indigenous peoples. NLI offers a culturally grounded cohort-based experience for Native leaders who are ready to step into elected office. And over the course of an intensive multi-day training, participants gain all of the practical skills and tools needed to run very successful campaigns, all while being rooted in shared cultural values. So at Advance, we are committed to creating opportunities for leadership development, community connection, and visibility for Native leaders. On to our guest intro. Keaton Sunchild, who is the other person in this video, as you can see. Keaton, can you give us a wave?
Hey, everybody.
Now you know who Keaton is. Keaton Sunchild is the Director of Government and Political Relations. He's a citizen of the Chippewa-Cree tribe from the Rocky Boys Reservation. He graduated from the University of Providence with a degree in sociology and political science, and later attended the University of Oregon School of Law. Before joining Western Native Voice, Keaton ran for state legislature in 2018 and worked on two presidential campaigns in 2020. In his spare time, Keaton enjoys watching the St. Louis Cardinals, Duke basketball, and Oregon football, as well as spending time with his dog, Lucy Lou. All right, Keaton, we've had the chance to connect before in our last webinar, which if folks have not watched, then you should watch that on our advanced Facebook page. Just scroll until you see two familiar faces. But there are likely some folks tuning in who weren't with us last time, so we would love to start with a quick refresher on your role at Western Native Voice and some of the mission and the work that guides your organization.
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. Good to see you again. A little bit about Western Native Voice. We are an advocacy organization aimed at lifting up the voices of different leaders in our communities across Montana, across the West, in a couple different states with our partners. Kind of committed to making sure that Indigenous communities in the West and across the country have a voice at the table, whether that's in their reservations, in their states, or here at the federal level. Last year, after we chatted the last time, I moved to Washington, D.C. to help open Western Native Voices first office on the eastern side of the country, here in Washington, D.C., working on all of our federal legislative policy, which is kind of a big and main part of my job, on top of working with in-state partners back in Montana, both in state legislature, state organizations, making sure that our communities are taken care of and that people have the resources that they need to be involved in the political process, from registering to vote, registering to get their ballots mailed to them, having their ballots picked up during elections, training them to run for office eventually, so that eventually, in an ideal world, there is parity in terms of the Native American population in Montana and other states across the country and their state legislatures in terms of making sure that they're accurately represented. Um, that's who we are.
No small feat. And congratulations on opening your office on the East Coast. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Amazing. As you look ahead to 2026, what is Western Native Voice focused on this year? Are there goals, campaigns, opportunities that you're especially excited about?
Yeah, I think really what we're looking forward to is getting our young people out to vote. It's for a long time, a lot of organizations are just trying to get as many people as they can registered to vote, getting them to the polls. Whereas young people kind of tend to feel like maybe they're left behind or they're an afterthought, which leads them to feel like their voice doesn't matter, the same as elders in their community or even their parents. So we want to really focus this year in the 2026 midterms on engaging with the youth, for lifting their voices up, making sure they, have the tools they need to be successful. So this, starts in our high schools, getting those students who are going to turn 18 before election day, whether that's the primary in June or the general in November, getting them registered to vote as soon as we can. At least in Montana, you can register to vote anytime before the next election, as long as you'll turn 18 on or after election day. Um, so lots of times high schoolers aren't eligible to vote while they're still in high school. I was when I was a senior. So we're really focusing on, going into the schools and really walking them through the political process beyond just, here's when elections happen. Really breaking it down to these are the different things that are on the ballot measures, different offices that maybe they don't hear of. We hear all the time about presidential races, federal elections, whether it's somebody running for the House of Representatives or for the Senate. But sometimes, you know, people don't really recognize that there's a lot of important decisions being made at the state level too. So in Montana, every odd number year, we send 150 legislators, 100 in the House and 50 in the Senate, to Helena for 90 days to make laws that'll impact Montana for at least 2 years. Whereas somebody, who we elect to Congress in Montana, they also have an important job, but a lot of what they do might not, impact day-to-day life as much as somebody who's elected to state legislature. So we're really just trying to get that message out to our younger folks and making sure that they have a big seat at the table in 2026 and beyond.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really helpful framing of also knowing what local representation can do and how powerful that is. So that's really helpful. Montana is home to a very wide range of viewpoints and experiences. Since our conversation last year, and you kind of touched on this a little bit with building in youth participation, where are you seeing momentum and growth for Native leadership across the state?
Yeah, I think our younger generation is really getting excited about organizing, about voting, and eventually about running for office. We have a pretty robust youth program that we kind of got started last year in anticipation of this year, and I think we're kind of seeing that pay off, not just in Indigenous communities and Native communities, but all across Montana and all across the country. So I think that's something we're seeing is kind of that younger generation kind of take control of what's happening across the country. It's kind of been a you had your turn, now it's our turn type of attitude. You know, depending on how you look at it, things aren't going so great right now. So I think that we're kind of seeing an attitude shift to where, they're just not really going to wait their turn. They're just going to kind of say it's our turn, which I think is really encouraging to see. It's something we're really looking forward to as an organization, and personally, I'm looking forward to as well.
I love that. Youth leading the way, whether they're asked to or not. That's the best thing. Um, So, in talking about the different community members within Montana and kind of within your network, Western Native Voice has a good group of committee members who play a critical role in a lot of the work that you do. Can you share a bit about who they are, how they show up, and why their leadership is so essential to building these lasting relationships throughout the state and I guess, throughout the country?
Yeah, so originally when we got started with this whole thing, we decided that we were going to be membership based, meaning, anybody was welcome. It was free to become a member. We didn't want any sort of economic hardship to stand in the way of people getting involved in the process. So through that, we were able to, form different committees of different projects that we wanted to see, or that our members wanted to see done. So some of that was, membership and making sure that we were recruiting a membership base and retaining and growing. Some of that was policy focused. I know that right now we have a group of folks that have been with us for a while that they're working on some MMIP legislation for the 2027 legislative session in Montana. So, having them is a really good resource to have. And it really gets back to the foundation that we were kind of founded on, and that's, empowering our communities. We don't really want to come in and say this is the way of the world, this is how things should be. We want to be able to just give the tools and the resources for the communities to lift themselves up and to use their own voices. People are more likely to listen to people that they see every day and have conversations with versus, somebody like me who lives on the completely other side of the country, that they only see, every so often in person and sometimes on a screen. Um, so having them actually in the communities helps in that way, but it also helps us on our side be able to make sure that we always, kind of know what's going on. Sometimes it's hard for us, especially in the winter, to get to a lot of reservations. And so sometimes, we don't feel as it's easy to feel not as plugged into what's going on, but, to have so many people spread out around the country or around the state and around the country, that we can rely on to kind of see, oh, there's some, resources that could be helpful in this corner of the state, or these guys are really struggling getting, this from the federal government, and how can we help them? That we sometimes in the past, it might have slipped through the cracks and we might have not been able to help. So they've been a huge help, up to this point. And I have no doubt that they'll continue to be one of our biggest assets going forward.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And also speaks to how important local community organizing is also in, building out that consistency and that trust and that collective care. I think that's really important. And also, having people show up for each other in different ways where and meeting each other where they can, right? That's so important.
Exactly.
Why is showing up for each other, especially in these hard moments? It has been a very long January of 2026. Why is showing up for each other in hard moments so important for Native folks?
I think the base of it is we're the only ones who know what native life, what reservation life is like. It's easy to just hear the stereotypes of, what an Indian is, what a reservation is. And for a lot of people, they're never going to step foot on a reservation in their life, especially in Montana. Since moving to the East Coast, a lot of conversations I've had is, a lot of tribes on this side of the country, they control the sports gambling, the casinos. So people have to go to them. In Montana, there's not really it's legal in Montana anywhere you are. So there's no real reason for people to go to the reservation to support the economies, to see what life is like there. So for a lot of Native people who aren't on the reservation anymore, you lose that sense of community a little bit, and so it can be hard, to kind of feel like you have an ally and have somebody that knows kind of what you're dealing with, the feelings that you're having. And for those on a reservation, for a good majority of them, they probably feel like the only true community they have are the people the however many square mile reservation they're living on is, because they're the only ones who can wake up in the morning and know that the one store that they have is going through hard times, or they have community members who are afraid to go outside because they might be mistaken for a different nationality and be arrested and sent to who knows where. That's a real thing in our country right now. And I think there's real power in people speaking up. We're starting to see that, especially where you are in Minneapolis. That when voices come together, it's hard to ignore. And I think that at the end of the day, as long as you kind of have those folks around you to help lift up that voice, we're going to be okay. But it just takes, a little bit of a scary first step in recognizing that you might be the only voice for a minute, but eventually you'll get some folks to coalesce around you as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And every movement started with a couple of voices that want to change, and then more voices were added to that. So, um, how do you see organizations like Western Native Voice and Advanced Native Political Leadership continuing to strengthen leadership pathways for Native people across Montana and the broader Native communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to kind of what we just talked about. It's a small step in a very big picture that is the political climate of the United States. A lot of people want to be involved. They want to make a difference and maybe even want to run for office here shortly, but they don't really know how. And maybe they're familiar with our organization, and now because of our partnership, we're able to bring them to you guys, and we're able to give them the tools and the resources that they need to really make that difference. Um, and vice versa, maybe there's folks who were only familiar with Advance, and now they're plugged in with us. And I just think that when different communities can see like-minded people working together, it's a sense of comfort and a sense of strength and unity. And right now, there's a lot of division and having to pick a side. And I think that there's nuance in partnerships like this that doesn't really, on the surface, doesn't really exist right now, at least in the first 28 days of January. Um, and so, when you can see different people from different parts of the country kind of coming together, I think that's something that a lot of people can take inspiration from.
Yeah, I love that. Leadership and community work take a lot of energy and a lot of care, as you know. What helps you stay centered and committed as you continue on this journey?
I think other than caffeine, um, just kind of remembering that when I was 17, yeah, 17, um, still in high school, like that's kind of when I decided I wanted to kind of get involved in politics. Maybe I started backwards, ran for office first, and worked my way backwards to here. Um, but I think just remembering, that desire to want to make the world a better place, and remembering that it was for, that small 6,000 group of people in the district I was running in Great Falls in Montana. Um, but still feeling like, and maybe it was the 18-year-old in me, but feeling like just because it was 6,000 people, like it could actually make a bigger difference and a broader impact. Um, and so there's times, especially here in DC, where you feel like that's not the case. You have conversations with congressmen and women, and they'll tell you one thing to your face, and then before you can even walk out the door, you see them on TV saying a completely other thing. Um, so sometimes it takes a second to kind of adjust to the fact that this is all just for better or worse, it's just a game to a lot of our elected officials. Like they're just trying to play a game. And so just remembering that like these are actually real people's lives, but also remembering that politics is now kind of a dirty word. It's dirty, it's picking a side, but I still think that at its best, it can lift people up and it can give people a voice that they didn't think they had. And it can really, there's no way out of this mess we're in right now without good people entering back into politics. I think right now there's a shift away from that. And so me just continuing to remember that like we have to continue being the calming, rational voices in this chaos to encourage people to, stay engaged and stick with the process because if not, I'll lose my mind. Other people will lose their mind. But I think just remembering that there's like a bigger role we're playing here, um, is kind of the only thing doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's never too late to start getting involved in different ways. And it's important for folks, for viewers, everyone, to know that, your power is something that you can use at any time and is important. Um, you kind of touched on this a little bit, in the different ways that Native leadership can show up. That's not only at the ballot box, right? There are many different ways that folks can step up in their communities. Where are you seeing Native voices shaping policy, shaping narrative, community decisions? Where are you seeing that in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good example that I saw just today is, members of the American Indian Caucus, so the state legislators in Montana. A lot of them are either in or on their way to Minneapolis to join in the protests, to offer their support, to meet with the local elected officials there, to meet with community members there, um, and even going back to their work in the 2025 legislative session. They dealt with um, a pretty heavy minority tilted the other way, and we're still able to get landmark pieces of legislation passed, like ICWA, or MICWA for Montana, Indian Education for All, Indian Language Preservation Acts, things that are vital to Native culture in Montana and Native history. They were able to get passed in a pretty tough environment. Um, And, flash forward to today, that's not even, they're not just stopping because the legislative session is over. Some of them do have elections they have to worry about later this year, and some of them don't. But um, a good majority of them, if not all of them, have in some way or another, done something surrounding, the two shootings that have taken place in Minneapolis, the um, ice raids in general, things that we're seeing on our TV screens in a different state, they're going and they're stepping up and they're being visible for a community that's hurting, and kind of offering their help as best they can and being able to come back and take what they learned there and apply it to here in Montana so that hopefully those things, um, if something similar happens in Montana, it's something they're ready for and can be, you know, advantageous for them. But hopefully it doesn't come to that. But I think them being able to continually show up, and in a lot of ways, that's a lot of what Native communities lack is people showing up when it's not just an election. Um, they're used to politicians coming around in September and October and the first couple days in November because they need votes. They're seeing these people in their communities. They're seeing them go outside of their communities and bring new ideas back. So I think that's something that, that we need to applaud them for, and are super happy that to have them in Montana, and it's something that I hope that the next generation of leaders in Montana look up to and are able to learn a lot from them.
That's really incredible to know that folks are, when we talk about community decision making and showing up for each other, traveling and being a presence where they can, and then bringing, those strategies of community care back to their own communities is really beautiful to see. And I think also speaks to the way that Native communities hold each other, in times of hardship and understand that we are all. Our fight for Indigenous sovereignty is all tied together. And so doing what we can to protect our folks across state lines or across different parts of the country is really, really important. So thank you for sharing that. Um, Joy, which is a wonderful thing that, especially in advance, we love to practice and focus on, is often overlooked in movement work. How do you practice joy in your leadership, and why do you see joy as an essential part of sustaining this work?
Yeah, I think, without joy, especially right now, it's going to make things even harder. And um, I think kind of what I try to bring to everywhere I go is a sense of humor and making sure that things are positive in a way that doesn't take away from the seriousness of what we got going on. And my bundle of joy wants to come up. Uh, but I think it's easy to get cynical and to get pessimistic about what's going to happen. And it's easy to say it's only January and there's still 11 months to go, or there's still X amount of years to go until you think things are going to be better. But you got to look at it one step at a time. What's one thing you can do today? And making sure, at least for me personally, making sure that there's at least one thing in my day that brings me some sort of joy, whether that's creatively, whether that's just watching a good show, listening to podcasts, something like that. And I think, I took that from one of the other folks I work with here in DC. You know, he just he's like, this place it'll suck your soul out if you let it. So, he kind of told me, got to have a good attitude, and even if it's, a bad day or whatever, you just gotta kind of laugh it off. If you don't laugh, you'll cry, sort of thing. And the other day, 2 days ago, I was shoveling my car out of ice and snow with a frisbee. So, I just started laughing. And, 2 hours later, I wasn't laughing. But now I laugh. But, I think being able to laugh at yourself too is something that is important in leaders because at least I don't take myself too seriously. Sometimes I have to remind myself, like, okay, there's some people, counting on you, or there's important people in this room. But then also, like, they're just people at the end of the day. Like, they work for us. So that kind of lowers the temperature too, and makes it a little easier to have conversations with them. And circling back to just humor is a good disarming tool. I mean, I know the first time I meet with senators or with Congress people, it's I'm usually making some sort of small joke in the beginning just to kind of disarm, the room. They don't really know who I am, what I'm going to ask of them. I don't really know how they're going to be. So that always seems to help. And sometimes there's not sometimes, a lot of times there's a lot of heavy stuff going on in the world, and it's not fun to just sit in the heaviness all the time. So you got to find a way to make your own happiness sometimes.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for the Lucy Liu cameo. That was great.
Yeah, now she's hungry.
Um, Yeah, I think humor and joy is so important and is so central to a lot of the ways that Native folks have resisted colonization and have gone through everything is to be able to laugh and to hold each other in those moments. Um, Also, a frisbee in DC, you've like lost your Midwestern ways. That's such a
Well, see, the
not
thing is,
prepared.
It was actually my sister's car I was shoveling out, and she
Mhm.
has a little brush that's about the size of a hairbrush.
Mm.
So my options were using that brush or a frisbee because I had to get her car out of the way so I could get my car out. And then once I got it out, I got stuck again.
And then you laughed it off, which is great.
Yep, still laughing about it 2 days later. Still sore too.
For folks watching who want to stay engaged, whether that's through organizing or leadership development or just showing up, what is one meaningful way that they can plug in right now?
Checking your voter registration status. Um, mm, I'm gonna do two. I'm gonna make the rules. One, check your voter registration status. In Montana, it's super easy. You literally just type in, you just go to the Montana Secretary of State website, and it's right on there under election and voter services. You can check voter info. Second one is I know that there are lots of mutual aid requests for groceries, for rent assistance, for all sorts of things in Minneapolis. I know that we get a lot of people asking how they can help out there. So my second one is find an organization that you trust, um, and figure out how you can help support them so that they can support the people there, so that they can keep trying to get things back on the rails for us as a country. Um, but those are my two, both fairly easy. One Montana specific. I'm sure it's just as easy in other states. I just know in Montana it's on the Secretary of State's website.
You heard it here first, folks. Those are your actions for the evening, for the weekend, for whenever you were tuning into this. Thank you so much, Keaton, for sharing all of your wisdom with us. We are going to get started into the surprise section.
Great.
Lexi, can I ask you to join us for this section, if
No, no.
possible? Amazing. Lexi
Hello.
is the backbone, is the person, the girly in STEM, the one who gets this Facebook up and running. She's the one that makes sure everything is going great. So Lexi is also going to help me out with this section. Um, Keaton, have you ever heard of true or false?
I have.
Great. Awesome.
True.
So we are going to do 10 rapid fire true or false questions. And if you get six or more correct, we have a special prize for you, which is
Awesome.
still a surprise to us, but will be something that we were going to give you tangibly. But for now, it's just the spirit of winning. So
Good
are
enough
you
for me.
ready?
God, I think so.
Okay. The official state tree of Montana is the eastern juniper.
False.
False is the ponderosa pine. There are 43 state parks in Montana.
Oh, that's true.
That's true. Montana was the second state in history to elect a woman to the U.S. House of Representatives.
No, that's false. We were the first.
Wow, you were the first, Representative Jeanette Rankin in 1916. Montana does not have a speed limit.
It used to be true, but it's false now.
Wow, I keep trying to get you with these. False. The maximum speed limit is 80 miles an hour. Evel
I,
Knievel, the famous stuntman from Butte, Montana, fractured 433 bones in his lifetime.
that sounds about right. True.
True. The 2007 drama action film No Country for Old Men was filmed in West Texas and Western Montana.
Oh, God. Are we false? That might be the first one I miss.
False, West Texas and New Mexico.
Typical.
In 1933, Dolly Smith Cusker Ackers became the first Native American woman elected to any state legislature in the United States.
True.
True. Wow, you're on a roll. So even good 10 out of 10. The filing deadline for candidates running in the 2026 Montana primary election is Thursday, March 5th.
True.
Are you sure?
No, wait. No, I can't look at my Google Calendar. I think it's the fourth.
True or false?
False then.
False. It's Wednesday, March 4th at 5 p.m.
Yeah, see?
The University of Oregon Law School was founded in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, that's false. No, get out of here.
That is true.
What?
They
No.
moved to Eugene in like 1915, but it was founded in Portland.
I missed that day orientation, I guess.
And our last question, the St. Louis Cardinals have 61 Hall of Famers.
No, that's too many. False.
False, it is 57. Lexi, how did he do?
Amazing.
9 out of 10.
Wow. I thought you were going to get so many less correct. Not that I don't believe in you, but I thought those were really hard.
And you did not believe in me whatsoever.
And that's why we believe in ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for joining this event, everyone that's listening, and thank you to our guest Keaton for joining. If this conversation has inspired you to learn more about how you can be the change in your community, we would love to talk with you. You can learn more about Native Leadership and our Native Leadership Institute and our trainings by checking out our website, advancednativepl.org, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, or X, whatever it's called now, for more information and events coming your way. Um, yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Keaton. Do you have any final words for us?
Yeah, thank you guys. And as far as how you can help us out, you can follow us on Facebook, Western Native Voice. Instagram is something of the similar. If you search Western Native Voice, you'll find it. And then our website, westernnativevoice.org. Check us out, become familiar with us, and hopefully we see you all in May, or a lot of you at least.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lexi. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night.